Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins with a small group of peasants journeying to a mage's tower in a place called Cragganmore. They've traveled for the help of the powerful sorcerer Ulrich, who sits in a magical trance and needs to be broken out of it by his apprentice Galen. A young woman pretending to be a man named Valerian's denied entry by the wizard servant Hodge but refuses to leave until their story is heard. Galen and his elderly mentor prepare to meet them in their fanciest robes when Ulrich reveals that he was having a vision of his imminent death. He now welcomes it as he feels like he's yet to reach his late mentor's level of achievements and asks Galen if he even wants to become a sorcerer anymore. He replies that he wants it more than anything, so they let the travelers inside the tower, where they're greeted by the wizard's illustrious entrance. An unimpressed Valerian just produces the large scale of a creature that Ulrich recognizes from the ancient dragon Vermithrak's pejorative. It's become so old that her body feels nothing but pain, so the king of the land made a deal to bring it young women in exchange for letting them live in peace. A lady's shown being chained up out front of the dragon's lair while the king's servant Horsrick gives a monologue about why it's for the greater good. The mountain begins rumbling, so everyone runs away, leaving the frightened sacrifice to rip one of her hands free from her shackles. Just then Vermithrax emerges from her lair as the young lady wrenches her other hand free and tries to escape but is intercepted. Even in its old age, the dragon can still cover large distances with her long tail and incinerates the cornered girl with its fiery breath. When Ulrich suggests that a more qualified mage do battle with her, Valerian says that all the others are dead and he's the last one left. Taking up his traveling pack, Ulrich intends to face down the dragon, but Hodge and Galen don't have much confidence that he'll return alive. He tells his apprentice to continue his studies to become a great sorcerer before being met at the front door by the captain of the king's royal guard, Tyrian. He needs Vermithrax dead as well, but has come to test if the wizard's powerful enough to defeat the dragon and not just make it angrier. As a demonstration of his abilities, Ulrich orders Galen to return to the tower and chuck him down a dagger from the window. He then seals Galen inside to prevent him from interfering and tells Tyrian to thrust the knife into his heart, claiming that it can't harm him. Having lied, the old mage collapses to the ground dead before everyone leaves disappointed and the tower reopens for the grieving apprentice. Galen cremates his master, and the next day Hodge gathers up the magical ashes for a later side mission. Ulrich's amulet presents itself to Galen, who sees fit to wear it and continue where his master left off in helping the villagers slay the dragon. They catch up to the villagers' camp, who are all chastising Valerian for having led them to Cragganmore in the first place. Introducing himself as the new sorcerer and their savior, Galen claims to be able to fulfill his former master's impossible task of slaying the dragon himself. Not like they have any other choice, they let him join their party, and in the early hours of the morning Valerian bathes in a lake to hide her secret. Galen is also an early bird and dives in to discover that Valerian's actually a woman, but promises not to tell any of the other villagers. Blaming her own carelessness, Valerian says that her father pretended that she was a boy ever since birth to avoid being sacrificed. Rich families pay the king to avoid it, while the poor are the first to have their daughters chosen, as their lottery system is completely rigged. Galen suddenly shown a vision of Tyrian attacking Hodge with a bow and rushes back to camp to find he's been shot with an arrow. With his last breath, he tells Galen to take Ulrich's ashes and toss them into a lake of burning water before dying in his arms without further explanation. Continuing on their journey, the party sails to the villagers' homeland and depart near the entrance to Vermithrax's lair. Galen requires seeing the entrance, so the villager Greil reluctantly follows while trying to convince him to leave the dragon alone. Needing evidence of Vermithrax's existence, he enters to find another scale and hears the beast's roar, which is enough confirmation. He inquires if there are any other entrances, and when told no, he casts a spell causing a large boulder to fall, burying the only way inside. Suddenly the whole mountain comes down and the villagers are forced to leap for cover, but they find it only buried the creature deeper. The whole village celebrates and honors Galen as their savior, while a dress-clad Valerian reveals herself as a woman now that she won't be sacrificed. She and Galen dance the night away, while Greil wishes he'd been as clever as her father, but his daughter was one of those fed to the dragon. The celebrations cut short by the arrival of Tyrian, who just wants to take Galen to meet King Casiodorus in person. Attempting to show his skills in sorcery, the young mage fails to make a table float, which fills the king with doubt that he succeeded in killing the dragon. Casiodorus instituted the lottery after Vermithrax killed his brother's entire army and thinks Galen has only provoked her to attack them once again. He snatches the young mage's amulet away and has Galen thrown in the dungeon, where a princess visits to speak with the outsider. Elspeth has no knowledge of the lottery fixing and thinks that her name has been included in the draw just like everybody else. She confronts the king with the new information, so he admits to rigging everything when Vermithrax begins burrowing out of the mountain. As earthquakes cause tremors across the kingdom, Princess Elspeth returns to the dungeon and releases Galen from his cell. He manages to steal a horse and escape the castle, while brother Jacopus takes the villagers to the dragon's lair and tries to pray to God for help. Vermithrax emerges so everyone runs away in terror except for the brave Jacopus, who confronts the dragon by calling it an unclean beast to her face. After she roasts him back, she flies to the village and punishes the rest of its people by torching most of it to the ground. In the morning, Tyrian demands to know from Valerian's father Simon the outsider's location, but he pretends like he hasn't got a clue. When the captain leaves, Galen emerges from beneath the blacksmith's anvil and expresses his requirement for a weapon capable of defeating a dragon. Hidden at the bottom of a waterfall is a spear called Dragonslayer, which Simon says is the greatest weapon that he's ever forged. Requiring the magical amulet to channel his powers, Galen sneaks into the castle while Valerian joins the women for the lottery. The choices are drawn from the cauldron and Horsrick nervously reads the selection out loud to be the king's daughter Elspeth. Casiodorus protests, but his daughter has put her name in the cauldron herself and says that it's no mistake. He pulls another copy of her name and discovers that Elspeth has put multiples inside for every lottery that she has ever missed. Meanwhile, Galen sneaks inside and searches for his amulet but is unsuccessful before getting captured by the king's men. Casiodorus says he knew Vermithrax was extremely old and was just hoping that she would die soon and he could end the lottery. He's run out of time, and despite Tyrion's warning against it, the king returns the amulet and begs the young sorcerer to save Elspeth. The following day, Galen prepares for battle by using magic to temper the spear while Valerian begins to collect scales around Vermithrax's lair. Galen sets off with Dragonslayer for what's likely his first and only mission when finding Valerian at the mouth of the mountain. She's crafted him a shield out of dragon scales for protection and warns him about a brood of baby dragonettes she discovered inside the lair. Having fallen in love with Galen and believing he's going to be killed, Valerian's upset, but he confesses the same feelings for her and they kiss. When the princess is about to be sacrificed by Horsrick, the mage appears in a puff of smoke which sends the villagers all fleeing in terror. Tyrion's not so easily scared and challenges Galen to a duel, but the mage disengages to cut Elspeth free from her binds and tells her to run. Instead, she walks straight into Vermithrax's lair while Galen's distracted fighting Tyrian, and her screams can be heard from outside. When Galen's almost defeated, Tyrian leans against the sacrificial post while bragging, but Galen thrusts Dragonslayer straight through it, killing him. The victor then runs into the lair to save the princess, but he's too late as the dragonettes are already chewing on her mutilated corpse. Galen impales the two nearest to him with his spear, but when the third leaps out at him, he beats it to death with his torch. Traveling deeper underground, he finds a burning lake where the dragon makes nest and begins searching the lair for it. He catches the reflection of Vermithrax surfacing behind him, and the dragon lets out a breath of fire, but the shield protects Galen from harm. He retreats through the caves past the dead dragonettes, causing the mother to stop in her tracks and lose sight of Galen to briefly mourn. She goes seeking revenge, but Galen uses the shield to lure her under a ledge and drops onto her back, plunging Dragonslayer into her hide. He's thrown to the ground and drives it into Vermithrax again, but as she thrashes around, the steel head breaks off the wooden shaft. Galen's defeated by the dragon and found sometime later by Valerian, having managed to drag himself out of the lair. With his failure to defeat the dragon, Valerian suggests they give up their current lives and travel to a different village to live together in peace. Simon agrees, telling Galen that sorcery's dying out, so the two say their goodbyes to the blacksmith and travel to a small rowboat on the lake. Planets align above them, and Galen sees a vision of fire on the lake and realizes that the burning waters that Hodge spoke of was the lake of fire in the lair. The sorcerer Ulrich knew that he couldn't make the journey on foot, so he had himself turned into ashes so that Galen could do it for him. Galen leaves a nervous Valerian inside the entrance of the lair with the body of Elspeth and returns to the fiery lake. He throws in the ashes of his master, extinguishing the fire before Ulrich resurrects inside a fancy green flame, having just needed a taxi up the cliffs. The hungry sorcerer just wants something to eat before talking, but his apprentice Galen says that he's failed the mission because he is too weak. His master says that he will be powerful one day, but for now they must slay a dragon while finding their way out of the cave to locate Valerian. Vermithrax flies overhead and perches on top of a mountain, so Ulrich tells Galen that he must destroy the amulet when the time is right. He teleports to the mountaintop to begin battling the dragon when the solar eclipse darkens the sky and the sorcerer summons a storm. He channels lightning from his staff to shock Vermi out of the air, but she recovers and narrowly avoids killing Ulrich with her talons on a flyby. She then turns around and blasts Ulrich with her flamethrower, but he's unharmed by the fire and only his burning staff must be thrown away. Vermithrax then swoops down, picking up the sorcerer and flying high into the sky, so he alerts Galen through the amulet to smash it now. It causes Ulrich to detonate in a large explosion as he's sacrificed himself to slay the dragon. She plummets to the ground and lands in a large lake that completely dries up as her carcass lays bare for all to witness. The villagers all believe that it was God's protection due to their prayers, while the king arrives once the eclipse passes. He sticks his sword in a random part of the long since deceased Vermithrax and proclaims himself as the Dragonslayer. The real heroes depart the village unacknowledged for a happy new life together, with Galen living as a commoner. He tells Valerian he wishes they had a horse when one comes trotting over the hill so they can continue their journey on horseback. And the movie ends.